many years ago at Russell Fan Fest, I was sitting at a bar talking to you, and then at the time you were saying that a lot of people were getting into podcasting, maybe without experience, and it was a lot of really good advice you gave me. And I waited 2 years before I was tricked into doing podcasts. What initially got you into doing podcasts?
I like to talk, and I think really having a podcast was a great way to talk. It's funny because I remember that, and I think I might have mentioned to you one of my favorite rock bands, the Ramones, and their idea that, you know, anyone can be a rock and roll star, and anyone can sit there and play, you know, 3 chords and be someone. And I always thought that there was a really nice punk rock aesthetic to doing podcasts, and I always was very happy when someone would sit there and, like yourself, and say, you know, I heard you do a podcast, and I realized, wow, I could do one too. And I don't know if that's, you know, sarcasm or what, but I always appreciate that. I guess what started me was I was writing for PW Torch. They used to have something called The Lounge, and there was a number of different people that would write columns for their Mike Sempervive, who I don't know what happened to that young man. He was one of those guys. A friend of mine, the late, great Craig Allison, was another guy, and also Derek Bergen, who wrote stuff for a number of years, a brilliant writer. I started writing for them, and I would write sometimes about Japanese guys, you know, the lovely art of karasu, as it were. And Mike Sempervive contacted me saying that he had talked to a gentleman by the name of Zach Arnold from the late, great Karasu Power website, and they were going to start a radio show all about Japanese wrestling, which was great. The only thing is I really wanted to do interviews with wrestlers and talk to wrestlers because I thought that would be very interesting, and that's basically how I started podcasting. It was basically one thing got another.
You know, what were some of your influences in doing radio? Because, I mean, initially you get down your quote-unquote radio voice, your radio style, but then I feel like the more podcasts I listen to and different radio shows I listen to, I pick up little tips and tricks. So for you personally, who do you like to listen to, and who were kind of your influences?
Excellent question. A lot of my influences were, it was different for me because Mike Sempervive was very much about sports talk radio, and I'm not really even that big of a fan of legitimate sports. Like, I know enough so people don't beat me up thinking I'm, you know, some sort of, I-O. But like I don't like listening to sports talk radio. For me, I've always been a big fan of Howard Stern. I'm a huge Howard Stern fan. Whenever I'm doing commentary, I try and slip 1 or 2 Howard Stern references in for the many wrestling fans that I know are also Howard Stern fans. So Howard Stern was always someone for me. And I think also because of my train of thought, Howard Stern once said in an interview with Rolling Stone that one of the reasons he thinks he's a good interviewer is because he's always thinking. Like if someone's giving an answer and such, he's thinking of the next question. He's still listening, but he's still trying to get an idea of what he would like to say and what he get across. In the meantime, also having a good interview. So Howard Stern was a big influence. And there was also a Chicago radio guy by the name of Steve Dahl who was around the same time as Howard that also inspired me, definitely when it came to humor and such. So I would say that those 2 guys were the big 2 guys. And then, 1999 and such, definitely the Wrestling Observer shows back in the IATA days, I think also inspired me that I could, possibly do this and do, a good job at it.
Okay, Keith, you're very well respected. And we'll get into later about all the stuff you're doing currently. You're very high profile. But a few years ago, I actually did a podcast with Chuck Taylor, and I misquoted some dates. I messed up locations of matches, and he really made the interview tough on me after that. Now, can you give me an experience of where an interview maybe didn't go so well?
I have one where I thought it went really well, but it was sort of awkward. We had Steve Corino on the show, and this was back in the day where Steve Corino, the king of old school, a fine fellow indeed, where he was doing a lot of Japanese tours. And Zach Arnold will report about these Japanese tours, and Steve Corino and Zach Arnold didn't necessarily get along. So one day I'm interviewing Steve Corino, and I'm excited because Steve Corino always, I was a huge ECW fan, huge ECW fan. I mean, I had a horrible case of pink eye during the November to Remember show, and I actually went to the show wearing an eye patch, and thankfully Scotty Riggs did not sit there and ask me if Raven allowed me to see an optometrist. But so I have Steve Carino on, and Steve Carino and I are talking, and the interview is going really, really well. And then I bring up Zach Arnold, and then Carino launches into a diatribe about Zach Arnold, who's listening on the phone. And then all of a sudden, I could hear Zach unmute and say something, and I was just like, "Oh, fuck! what the fuck is like?" I mean, I try never to really get angry at people, but that was like one time where I was just like, "Dude, you should just let it roll." I mean, it wasn't good radio because I knew he was going to edit it out anyway. But there's been a few times when I really, really liked MMA with the Pride stuff. And when UFC was, before Ultimate Fighter, before they became too big for their britches, I liked having fighters on. And at fighters, you could sometimes never really tell what you would get. I remember interviewing Tim Sylvia, and it just
and former heavyweight champion of the world.
Former heavyweight champion, great kick. I remember just the interview with him being sort of awkward. I remember one of my favorite interviews, I think, of the Progressive Power days was we had Nick Diaz on the show. And it was one of the finest interviews around because he was so honest. And this was before the Nick Diaz that we know, smoking trees and everything else today. And it was a great interview. And what I liked about it was he wanted to listen to the interview. He wanted his manager to listen to the interview. And then he listened to the interview and called me personally and said, can we edit out this part where I was talking about this girl because I don't want my girlfriend to hear this. Which I was like, this is amazing, the fact that you think your girlfriend's going to hear this. I mean, obviously it'll get around and such, but I mean, that's just, the power of radio is quite good. So, and there was also the time we were interviewing Dana White, and it seemed like Sempervive was begging for a job, but that's another story altogether. But I guess the main thing to do is when the interview goes wrong, just try and enjoy it and try and ride through it. Obviously, the biggest, highest profile interview I ever had that went wrong was the DVD for Big Vision Entertainment, rest in peace, The Last Call with Raven and
Real
Sandman.
quick before we go into that, as I do want to discuss that, but you said you're a big ECW fan. I actually had a conversation with someone very knowledgeable this weekend in Vegas, and he told me that he thinks the best year of ECW is 1995. Do you have a year in particular of ECW that stands out to you? For me, it's 96.
96 to me, I thought was a little bit better a year. I mean, don't get me wrong, 1995 definitely had some fantastic stuff, but 96, I think, really was when, 1994 was a nice launching pad. 1995, there was a lot of great stuff going on. The Rotten Feud, for example, and, all the stuff there. But 1996 is when it really, really capped in. I mean, who knows how many mounds of blow people were doing back in those days. But, I mean, just really, that's when they really became the thing. And the thing for me is what really gets me in wrestling is feuds, and feuds that are done incredibly well. And everything that was going on during that time with, Raven, Dreamer, Sandman, Brian Lee, and especially the Taz and Sabu thing was just so incredibly well done. It just one thing after another. The Eliminators totally kicking ass. The Eliminators gangster feud is one of the most under-heralded feuds of all time. I mean, they just really had a lot of fun working each other. Well, maybe it wasn't that much fun, but it did lead to the Gangstinators. But I would sit there and say, 1996 was a very, very strong year for ECW.
One of my favorite moments of the year, and then I'll use this as a segue into the DVD you did, is that going into Remember 96, Dreamer had been jumped by Shane Douglas and Brian Lee, and he's leaving the hospital. And prior to that, any conceivable tag team partner Tommy Dreamer could have going into November to Remember, Shane Douglas and Brian Lee beat up. And there was only one more man, Keith, he could call. And Douglas has got the promo, Dreamer, make the call. And Dreamer walks outside the hospital, and he picks up the phone and talks to the operator, and he said, "Can you connect me to the Double Cross Ranch?" And the operator knew where to connect him because there's only one Double Cross Ranch.
This operator was a big fan, or she was a rat. So either way, it's just the fact that I would think Tommy Dreamer would know Terry Funk's number by heart, And I like Tommy Dreamer. Tommy Dreamer is responsible for so much great memories for me, and he also got me laid. So really, Tommy Dreamer is a fantastic fellow. So Tommy Dreamer got me laid because in 1998, I dressed for Tommy Dreamer as a Halloween costume But instead of blood, I used cake frosting all over my head. So all these girls kept on wanting to lick my head at this Halloween party. It was insane, and then it just led to a wonderful night of ECW debauchery. Safe for work except for the nude bits, but no drugs. I don't do that.
From what I understand, you did a DVD that was released nationwide, and then major retailers like Best Buy, for example, with Raven and the Sandman. How did that experience go?
Oh, awful. I think the sad thing is sometimes the biggest, highest profile things you see sometimes go great, other times they go bad. I had done a shoot DVD with New Jack a year before, and it went really, really well. I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was one of those shoots, though, that I was like, does the world really need another New Jack shoot interview? And the answer, of course, is always yes, even though he has done, 40 or 50 of them. So I'd done this New Jack shoot interview, and people loved it. I was very happy with it, my performance. And there's an XPW reunion coming out. I'm going out there anyway to work that show. They asked, well, let's do this shoot interview again, and let's do it with Raven and Sandman. And here I am thinking, my first thought was, this is awesome. Like, more of my, hardcore heroes from ECW. But in the back of my mind, the furthest thing I'm thinking is, I'm going to be talking to guys that have done shoots with each other already. Like the fact that there's no new concept here. So I expressed to Kevin Kleinrock of Big Vision Entertainment, let's try and do something different. Let's try and do something exciting, something that would, that it wouldn't be a non-standard shoot interview. One of my real jobs is I've worked as a bartender for 12 years on the north side of Chicago. And the idea was, how about this? How about we sit there and we film this at a bar location, and we sit there and we basically have Raven and Sandman drinking through the course of the shoot. So this sounds like a great idea, right?
Absolutely. How could it go wrong?
Oh, that's a good question. So anyway, this is how it goes wrong. Number one, whatever was shooting in the porn set that we were in for the bar went late. So already Raven and Sandman are a little upset about this. Number two, Raven and Sandman didn't really feel like talking, which is sad because sadly that's the rule number one of the shoot interview process is you should actually like to talk and discuss things. It just turned into like 2 or 3 questions in. I'm sitting there and I'm like, Sandman, can I get you something to drink? No. Raven, can I get you something to drink? No, I'm not drinking anything right now. Yeah. Like just Raven being Raven. And I was just like, this is going to suck. Thankfully, New Jack, my good friend, Mustafa of the Gangsters were also there, and also Terry Funk was there. So they at least were there sort of to quote-unquote save the show. But it was just, to me, it took a while afterwards where I just was like, my God, I can't believe that this went so bad. Jimmy Jacobs, a near dear friend, a guy that I've known for fucking ever, like, one day, I work with him for Wrestling Society X. I've known Jimmy since the IWA days. And Jimmy's like, yeah, I saw that shoot you did with New Jack. That was very good. You were very good. You're a good interviewer. I like the fact that you ask questions based on what people say as opposed to read off a thing. So he's praising me about this stuff. About 2 months later, I run into him at a Ring of Honor show. He's like, bro, I just saw that bar shoot you did with Raven and Sandman. That was shit, bro. So every once in a while, I'll sit there, and if I see him online or something else out there, I'll text him or shoot him a message saying, bro, that was shit, bro. So just remembering the good old days. But, hey, I got paid well for that, and I'm sure you can find a copy of it at any FYE for $2, maybe below the, Meatballs 3. So
You're listening to 240 Radio on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.